I'm going to tell you something that will probably make you uncomfortable. The traders making real money, the ones who've been consistently profitable for years, the elite performers who seem to have cracked some secret code, they're not doing what you think they're doing. You watch them and you see discipline, you see consistency, you see someone who follows their rules perfectly, who never breaks their plan, who executes with machine-like precision, and you think that's the goal. You think if you could just be that disciplined, if you could just follow your rules like they do, you'd finally make it. But you're seeing the output, not the input. You're seeing the result of their behavior, not the actual behavior itself. And the actual behavior, the stuff they're really doing behind the scenes, is completely different from what you imagine. Let me start with what you probably think discipline looks like in trading. You picture someone sitting at their desk, focused, calm, watching the charts with intense concentration. They see their setup. They take the trade exactly according to plan. They manage it perfectly. They close it at their predetermined target. No hesitation, no second guessing, no emotional reaction, just pure execution. Trade after trade after trade. That's the image, right? That's what discipline looks like, except it's completely wrong. That's not what elite traders are doing. That's not how they maintain their discipline. Because that version of discipline, the white-knuckle, constant vigilance, never make a mistake version, is impossible to sustain. Nobody can do that. Not for long. The traders who try to be disciplined that way burn out or blow up within months. The elite traders figured out something different. They figured out that real discipline isn't about forcing yourself to follow rules. It's about making it impossible to break them. I knew a trader named Marcus who'd been profitable for over a decade, consistently. Not huge returns, but steady, reliable, year after year. I asked him once how he stayed so disciplined, how he never broke his rules. He looked at me like I was confused. He said he broke his rules constantly, or at least he wanted to. Every single day there were trades he wanted to take that didn't fit his plan. Every single day there were moments he wanted to move his stop loss, or close early, or do something stupid. The difference wasn't that he resisted those urges better than other traders. The difference was he'd set up his entire trading operation so that even when he had those urges, he physically couldn't act on them. He traded through a system where his stops were entered automatically the moment he entered a position. He couldn't move them. The software literally wouldn't let him. His position sizing was calculated by a spreadsheet that he'd filled out the night before. When he was trading, he couldn't change it. He'd have to close the spreadsheet, edit it, recalculate, and by then, the moment would have passed. He'd set up friction, intentional obstacles between his impulses and his actions. That's what discipline actually looks like at the elite level. It's not about being strong enough to resist temptation. It's about never being in a position where you have to resist in the first place. Think about what happens in your brain when you were in a trade and it's going against you. You're down money. Every tick lower is more pain. Your chest is tight. Your stomach is churning. You're staring at the screen and your brain is screaming at you to do something. Close the trade. Move the stop. Add to the position. Anything to make this feeling stop. In that moment, you're not capable of rational decision making. You're in a fight or flight state. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles logic and planning and self-control, is basically offline. The emotional parts of your brain have taken over. And those parts don't care about your trading plan. They care about survival. They care about ending the pain right now. If you're relying on willpower in that moment, you've already lost. Willpower doesn't work when you're in that state. It's like trying to have a reasonable conversation with someone who's being chased by a bear. The only discipline that works is the discipline you set up before that moment arrives. The rules you make impossible to break, the decisions you remove entirely. Elite traders understand this. They don't trust their in-the-moment selves. They trust the systems they built when they were calm. Here's a behavior you never see people talk about. Elite traders spend more time not trading than trading. Dramatically more. I'm talking about checking charts once or twice a day instead of staring at them for hours. I'm talking about having clear start and end times for their trading day and actually sticking to them. I'm talking about taking entire days off, sometimes entire weeks, when conditions aren't right. You know what the average struggling trader does? They're at their desk from market open to market close. They're watching every tick. They're looking for opportunities constantly. They're terrified that if they look away, they'll miss the big move. And that behavior, that constant engagement, destroys their discipline. Because the more you watch, the more you'll trade. The more you trade, the more marginal setups you'll take. The more marginal setups you take, the worse your results get. Elite traders figured out that discipline isn't about watching the market more carefully. It's about watching it less. It's about creating space between themselves and the charts so they're only engaging when they're actually in the right mental state. I'll tell you about Rachel. She was a trader who could not stop overtrading. She knew it was her problem. She'd written it down. She'd made rules about it. Didn't matter. She'd tell herself she was only going to take one trade today, and by noon, she'd have taken 5. She tried everything. Trading journals, meditation, taking breaks. Nothing worked. Then she did something radical. she started trading with a partner. Not someone who traded with her capital, just someone who had to approve every trade before she took it. She'd see a setup, she'd message her partner, explain why it fit her criteria, and wait for confirmation. If her partner said yes, she could take it. If her partner said no, or even if her partner just took more than 60 seconds to respond, the moment would pass and she wouldn't take the trade. Her overtrading stopped immediately. Not because she suddenly developed better self-control, because she'd added a step that made impulsive trading impossible. She'd made discipline structural instead of personal. That's what elite traders do. They look at their specific weaknesses and they build external systems that neutralize those weaknesses. They don't rely on being better people. They rely on being smarter about their own limitations. Another behavior nobody talks about. Elite traders have identical routines. I mean identical. Same wake-up time every trading day. Same morning routine. Same time they review charts. Same time they place trades if they're placing trades. Same time they stop trading. Same end-of-day review process. It sounds boring. It sounds rigid. It sounds like it would make you less adaptable to market conditions. But it does the opposite. It removes variability from everything except the actual trading decisions. And when everything else in your day is automatic, routine, predictable, your brain has more capacity for the actual important decisions. You're not wasting mental energy deciding when to check the charts or whether you should review your trades today or what time you should stop trading. All of that is decided in advance. It's automatic. Your discipline is embedded in your routine instead of being something you have to manufacture every single day. I watched a trader named Tom follow the exact same routine for 3 years straight. He woke up at the same time. He made the same breakfast. He reviewed the same checklist before market open. He checked for his setups at the same 3 times during the day. He closed his platform at the same time every afternoon, whether he was in trades or not. People thought he was obsessive. He thought he was lazy. He said he didn't want to make decisions about routine stuff because decisions use up willpower, and he needed that willpower for trading. He'd automated everything else, so trading could be simple. Here's something that will probably surprise you. Elite traders have rules about when they're not allowed to trade. Not just what setups they take, but specific conditions under which they close their platform and walk away regardless of what the market's doing. They have rules like no trading after 2 consecutive losses, no trading when they didn't sleep well the night before, no trading within 2 hours of a major personal event, good or bad, no trading on Fridays if they've had a losing week. These aren't suggestions. These are hard rules with actual consequences. You know why? Because elite traders have tracked their performance long enough to know when they trade badly. They know that after 2 losses, their judgment is compromised, and they start revenge trading. They know that on poor sleep, their patience disappears and they take mediocre setups. They know that emotional events, even positive ones like closing on a house or celebrating an anniversary, affect their trading negatively because their focus is split. So they don't trade during those times. Not because they're being careful, because they've made it a rule that they literally cannot break. Some of them have accountability partners who they have to check in with. Some of them have systems that lock them out after certain conditions are met. The mechanism doesn't matter. What matters is they have identified the specific situations where their discipline fails, and they have removed the option to trade during those situations. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Elite traders lose, a lot. Sometimes more than they win, but they have a completely different relationship with losing than struggling traders do. When a struggling trader takes a loss, it's personal. It's evidence they're not good enough. It's a failure. It triggers shame and frustration and doubt. They start questioning their strategy. They start wondering if they should change their approach. They take the next trade with hesitation and fear. Elite traders have somehow managed to emotionally decouple from individual trade results. They care about the process, not the outcome. And I know you've heard that before. Everyone says that. But elite traders actually do it. And the way they do it is specific and teachable. They've gamified their trading. They track metrics that have nothing to do with money. They celebrate perfect execution on a losing trade. They track their setup accuracy, how well they identified their pattern, regardless of whether it won. They measure their rule-following percentage. They give themselves points for waiting for perfect setups instead of taking marginal ones. They've created alternative reward systems that trigger dopamine for the right behaviors instead of just for winning trades. Your brain needs rewards. It needs to feel like it's winning. If the only reward is making money, you're going to be inconsistent because you'll only feel good after winning trades. But if you've set up rewards for following your process, for executing with discipline, for waiting patiently, suddenly your brain is getting positive feedback even on days when you lose money. That's how elite traders maintain consistency. They've hacked their own reward system. There's another behavior that seems small but matters enormously. Elite traders have a specific physical trading environment, and they only trade from that environment. Same desk, same chair, same setup. Some of them won't even trade if they're traveling, no matter how perfect the setup looks, because they're not in their environment. This sounds superstitious. It's not. It's about state management. Your physical environment affects your mental state. When you sit down in the same place where you've executed disciplined trades hundreds of times, your brain automatically shifts into that mode. You've conditioned yourself through repetition. It's like how you feel different at the gym versus on your couch. The location itself triggers a mindset. Elite traders use this deliberately. They've created an environment where disciplined trading is the default state, and they protect that environment carefully. They don't trade from their phone while they're out. They don't take setups from a laptop in a coffee shop. They don't break the environmental conditioning they've spent months or years building. The environment does half the discipline work for them. Here's what might be the most important behavior difference. Elite traders have built-in circuit breakers that automatically stop them from trading when things go wrong. Not suggestions. Actual automatic stops. A trader I know named David has a rule that after he loses 2% of his account in a week, his trading platform gets locked for the rest of the week. Not by him. By his risk management software. He literally cannot place trades. Another trader, Jennifer, transfers her trading capital out of her account every Friday and only transfers back what she's willing to risk the following week. If she loses it, she's done trading until the next Monday, regardless of what setups appear. These mechanisms sound extreme, but they work because they remove the option to spiral. Most traders who blow up don't do it on one trade. They do it on the revenge trading sequence that happens after a bad trade or a bad day. They lose, they get emotional, they try to make it back, they lose more, they get more emotional, and the cycle continues until serious damage is done. Elite traders have systematic ways to break that cycle before it starts. They've accepted that sometimes they'll be emotional and irrational, and they've made it impossible for their emotional, irrational self to destroy what their calm, rational self built. The last thing I'll tell you about elite trader behavior is maybe the most counterintuitive. They're constantly making their trading harder, not easier. You'd think once they found something that works, they just keep doing it. But they don't. They add constraints. They make their entry criteria stricter. They reduce their position sizes. They add more waiting time between trades. They deliberately introduce friction that forces them to be more selective, more patient, more disciplined, because they understand something crucial. Discipline isn't a destination. It's not something you achieve and then maintain. It's something that degrades over time unless you actively reinforce it. Success makes you sloppy. A good run makes you overconfident. You start thinking you can bend the rules because you're on a hot streak. Elite traders know this about themselves, so they preemptively make their rules stricter to counteract the natural drift towards sloppiness that success creates. They're fighting against their own success, constantly recalibrating to maintain the discipline that created the success in the first place. What you think of as discipline, that image of the focused trader perfectly executing trade after trade, is a fairy tale. Real discipline in trading looks like someone who barely trades, who has a boring routine they follow religiously, who's built systems and rules that remove most of their decisions, who's set up their entire operation to protect them from their own worst impulses, who treats trading like a process to be measured rather than a competition to be won, who's more interested in following their rules than in making money on any individual trade. The behaviors that create elite performance aren't dramatic. They're not inspiring. They're systematic, boring, and completely focused on neutralizing human weakness rather than celebrating human strength. You can't willpower your way to consistent profitability, but you can systematically design your trading operation so that discipline becomes the path of least resistance instead of a constant battle. That's what elite traders have figured out. That's the secret. Not that they're more disciplined than you, that they've made discipline structural instead of personal,